This part of Indonesia is rarely visited by yachts, and those that do come rarely spend long here. So by being stopped here for months, we have a unique opportunity to explore and discover some beautiful unknown anchorages.
In the last 4 years since leaving England, we have crossed 2 oceans and sailed over halfway around the world.
Our circumnavigation of the world is on pause in Indonesia, on the edge of the Indian Ocean, as we wait out the global pandemic. After 4 months of lockdown, only able to go ashore on our isolated island, the restrictions have been eased. Now we are allowed to explore the local area. After so long in one place, it feels incredible to be sailing again. What's happening, Amy?
We're heading out to some islands that we can see and some reef patches that we can see on the satellite images at the other side of this island. And this is the first time that we're heading into waters that we don't know and that the charts aren't very good for a very long time. So yeah, it's really exciting. New adventure.
Angel Wing Florence, go ahead, over.
Yeah, I'm not going to run with the main at the moment, mate. I think as we come there more to the west, I'll lose the head sail if I do that, so I'm just going to poke along nice and slow over.
We've got some company for this little exploration trip. Andrew on Angel Wing is coming with us. He's a 44-foot catamaran, single-handed. He's just got his big Code Zero up at the moment. He's going pretty much the same speed as we are with all our sails up. But it'd be nice to have some company.
He's got some problems with his depth sounder though, so it's important that we stay ahead to make sure that he knows what the depth is.
Yeah, he's pretty safe. We draw 1.7 metres, he draws 1 metre. So if we're anywhere near in front of him, he'll be safe.
It's always exciting heading somewhere new that we know nothing about. We've asked the guys who run the surf resorts about over here, and although they say it looks beautiful when they fly over it on the plane, they don't know anything about any anchorages around there. And the local guys, although there are some villages over that way, they don't know anybody from that area or what kind of reception we might get. So it's a little bit nerve-wracking, but also really exciting.
Sailing into the unknown once more.
Yeah.
Well, sort of unknown. We've got satellite images.
We've got satellite images, but that's it.
So there we go.
Yeah.
We're leaving at 9 o'clock in the morning. It's about 15 miles, which if we're sailing should take us about 4 hours, which should get us there for nice overhead light conditions. So we've got the best chance of having good sunlight to see the reef and get into what looks like a nice but a little bit tight anchorage. Hopefully we'll find it is as it looks on the satellite pictures. You never really know though. So this is not what we want. Big rain clouds coming through. Means the viz is really rubbish. Can't see the reefs. So we've just reefed down, slowed down, and we're hoping that it's going to pass through and then we can carry on. But got to be prepared that if it doesn't pass through and it gets too late in the day, we might just have to turn back and retrace our steps, try again another day. But that's life out here. The weather forecasts are not brilliant smack bang on the equator. They find it really difficult to predict, so that's how it is. So we just pretty much stopped the boat during that last rain squall, just furled the genoa completely, and we got one reef in the mainsail, just were stowed down, so we're doing 0.7 of a knot, and just waited for it to clear, which it has now done. Although it's still pretty rainy over to our starboard side. But that's what's giving us some wind, so at least that helps us a little bit. Sun's back!
Yeah, the sun's back. It's amazing what a difference it makes. Just like no drizzle now and that tiny bit of sunshine, and you can see the reef really clearly. So we're going to make our way through this little narrow gap and then we'll clear for a little while, and then hopefully it won't be raining once we reach the anchorage itself, so we can try and spot somewhere with a clear bottom that we can stick the anchor.
Our route is taking us around the top of the main island to the first of the possible anchorages we have identified from the satellite images. There are a number of reefs to negotiate along the way. They should be deep enough for us to pass over, but we take a very cautious approach on Florence, so we will go around anything that looks like a reef on the satellite images, whilst keeping a sharp lookout and an eye on the depth gauge. How well the reefs show up on the satellite images varies due to the water clarity, sea state and weather on the day that the picture was taken. We sail slowly through tricky areas like this to give us more time to react.
It's given Andrew a chance to catch up as well, which is good, because this bit's a bit more difficult without the depth sounder.
So we got a bit more sail area out now, we've got the genoa out, but we're keeping one reef in the mainsail because even though we're a little bit smaller, monohulls go much better upwind than catamarans, so if we shake that reef out we'll leave Andrew for dead. It'll be the other way round if we go downwind. Catamarans are faster downwind.
But as soon as we put the anchor down, the advantage goes back to the catamarans because they're much more comfortable at anchor.
Don't roll around as much.
No.
And it's a bit sloppy, so we're not sure what this anchorage is going to be like.
Yeah.
Right, we're close enough now. It's time to try and get in through the reef and find somewhere a bit more sheltered to anchor for the night.
When coming into a new anchorage, Matt helms and has our GPS position overlaid onto the satellite images, whilst I look out from the bow and guide us through any shallow spots. As we get into the anchorage, I'm looking down to try and see the bottom type and avoid any coral heads.
And I'm keeping a careful eye on the depth gauge to see if it's a constant reading indicating good smooth bottom, or rapidly varying readings indicating jagged rock or coral which could snag the anchor or chain. So we found a spot to anchor off this beautiful island. Turquoise waters, we can see the bottom, it's clean sand, so we're not worried about getting the anchor snagged on some coral. We're not sure what the reaction would be if we went ashore in the village. Well, we wouldn't go to the village, we'd go for a walk along the beach. There's a few people there and they had friendly smiles, but there's actually also another sand spit just offshore which looks fantastic. Nobody there to worry about, or for us to worry. So we're going to have a look. Normally getting there would be a bit more difficult with our dinghy, but since we've got Andrew with us, he has a nice big dinghy with a 15 horsepower engine on the back.
Now that we are not restricted to one bay, we have a unique opportunity to explore an area that even the few cruisers who do make it to this part of Indonesia pass by.
We'd originally planned to spend 2 months in the islands off the west coast of Sumatra before crossing the Indian Ocean. By now we should be in Madagascar on our original plan. 2 months in one part of Indonesia may seem like a long time, yet in reality, given the number of islands here and the distances that we'd need to travel, 2 months would have been a real rush and only given us a chance to scratch the surface.
The weather today is showing the unpredictable nature of the equator. The air has a charged feel to it, making this remote sandspit seem a wild place. Looking up to windward, the sky had taken on an apocalyptic look, so we didn't have long to explore this sandspit before it became clear that we needed to return to the boats before we were engulfed by the brewing storm.
Well, we made it back to the boats. The apocalyptic rain has kind of arrived, but it's not really apocalyptic anymore. There's no wind with it, it's just 10 knots of breeze, so comfortable still. And actually it's really useful because we really need some water in the water tank, so we've put the rain catcher out and we're going to make the most of it. We're pretty pleased we made a decision to come today, even though the weather wasn't perfect, and that we did the right thing by slowing down when the rain came when we were sailing here and waiting for it to pass through, and we had a really good weather for coming into this anchorage. Now we're in safe, we're happy we got a safe anchorage, and it doesn't matter the rain now, we can just make the most of it and catch some. Forecast is for better weather for the next few days, but no wind, so it was nice to sail here. I think we'll be motoring tomorrow, but hopefully we can explore a little bit more of this area.
One of the things that I find really difficult to get my head around until we actually arrive in a place is the real scale of the area. And we haven't actually stepped foot onto mainland Sumatra yet, and we just visited the outer islands. But just to give you a bit of scale of the place, you can fit the UK 4 times into the landmass of Sumatra. The Telos Islands, where we've been based for the last few months, are actually the smallest island group off the west coast of Sumatra. Yet there's still at least 50 islands just within this group. Yet in the whole of the Lonely Planet Guide for Indonesia, these islands actually only hold half a page for a few of the surf resorts that are based here. Yet if you look at the satellite images for this area, you can see that there are tons of anchorages waiting to be explored.
Unfortunately, along with the rain came an uncomfortable northwesterly swell, and with the rain reducing visibility, it was not until the following afternoon that it cleared enough for us to move on through the reefs.
Although it was really pretty, that first anchorage got a bit rolly and we had a bit of a wet, uncomfortable night. So we're moving on now that the sun has come out to try and find somewhere a bit more sheltered, just a bit further south.
So it's nice to be sailing in company. So just coming up to the corner of this reef, and then we can turn to starboard and run down it.
We picked a spot big enough for 2 boats in a pocket in the reef. Protected from the swell, it was a much more comfortable anchorage, but in hindsight, it still wasn't the best choice. Despite the forecast, the wind filled in as soon as it was too late in the day for us to leave. 25 to 30 knots blew directly into the anchorage throughout the night, making for another uncomfortable, sleepless night.
Well, this anchorage is better than the last one was, but the wind picked up here in the night, shifted round to the north, which meant it's not as sheltered as it was, so we've been bouncing around a little bit. And to be quite honest with you, we're getting sick of being bounced around by the wind-driven chop and the swell. We got out of the swell here, but just the wind-driven chop came into this bay. So we're about to up anchor and go and tuck ourselves right round behind an island away from this northerly. The wind's supposed to be coming from the south according to the forecast we got a couple of days ago. I mean, it's blowing 21, 22, 23 knots now. We never have this much wind on the equator, it's just when we come around here. So anyway, we're going to skip a few of the anchorages we were going to try, just go to one that's hopefully more sheltered from this wind direction, tuck up, and then we can actually go and explore ashore instead of being stuck on a bouncy boat. So at least I guess we got some wind and we're going downwind to go and find this place, so we can actually sail there, which will be great. One of the questions we often get asked is how we find or choose anchorages, especially in remote areas such as this. First of all, we go to the pilot guide for the area, but there isn't anything in this book for the islands that we're wanting to explore here. So next we will do an internet search for any reports from other yachts that might have been through that area and recommended anchorages on their blogs, but again, as not many yachts visit this area, there isn't anything that we could find. So that leaves us with two pieces of information. One, the chart, and again that here is not very accurate or not very detailed, and the second one is satellite images, and satellite images have become our main source of information for finding anchorages in remote areas like this. They're really useful and available for free, which is great. So here we're looking for a bay which is sheltered from the direction in which the wind is coming from and shallow enough for us to be able to anchor, ideally also with a clean bottom for us to get a good holding for the anchor as well and not snag on any coral bommies or anything like that. We're going to ignore the weather forecast as it doesn't match the weather we've seen for the last couple of days. We have a strong north to northeasterly wind, so we want to find an island, ideally with some trees on it to give us a windbreak that has a sheltered bay on its southern side. This island down here looks the best. There are a few possibilities for anchoring on its southern side. The middle one looks the most protected from both the wind, because of the trees on the island, and from any swell because of the reef wrapping around the anchorage. So we look closer. When we zoom all the way in, we can see that there are some reefs which we will need to avoid on the way in, but there is reasonably deep water close to the beach. The sandy beach is a good indication of sand on the bottom of the anchorage for our anchors to bite into, but some of the shadows in the shallow water indicate possible coral bommies that could snag the anchor too, so we just have to be careful. Those shadows could also turn out just to be seagrass, and that wouldn't be a problem. If we compare that information to the chart, you can see why we don't rely on the charts around here. There's very little detail, just two spot soundings here and here, miles away from where we need to be, and no information whatsoever about the area we want to anchor. There's no guarantee the island is even in the right place either. So we have a target anchorage to aim for. We've also got a few backups just in case this one doesn't work out, but there's nothing for it now. We just have to go and have a look and see if it matches what we expect to see. Proper exploring.
It was a bit of a fight motoring out of our reef anchorage before we could set sail, but then it was downwind all the way. And this is how that anchorage turned out.
Well, this is a bit more like it. Come 8.5 miles south, tucked ourselves into a little bay on the southern side of this island, and the difference to where we were before is huge. We've got flat, calm water, beautiful beach. Hopefully we can go for a walk ashore later, and this changes the mood on board. Much happier now. It's such a good anchorage that a couple of the local fishing boats came in with us as we were coming in, so we've got a couple of locals next to us and they seem pretty happy with us being here. Nobody said anything against us, although, oh, sounds like they might have a big sound system, so maybe we'll have a party.
It turns out that they'd travelled from the main island of Sumatra and were just using the anchorage for a break from the wind to mend their nets and cook some lunch. They soon set out to fish again, leaving just us and the 6 workers of the island's coconut plantation.
to add to the friendly reception from the fishing boats that are here, the guys that clearly live in the hut ashore on the beach just paddled out to offer us coconuts. They just come out and they want to be friendly and they just give you coconuts, and then you end up ransacking your store cupboards to try and give them something in return, even though they said no, nothing needed in return. So it's why we really like coming off the beaten track more. You get a much more genuine, friendly hello, which is just a really positive, happy interaction. So we feel really, really welcome here in this bay now. And yeah, it's just a really, really nice feeling to know that you're fully welcome with friendly people, smiles all round, and we can go ashore and have a walk up and down the beach without feeling that we're intruding on somebody's property, on somebody's space. So it's great.
We set out early the next morning to attempt a full circumnavigation of the island.
After 2 days stuck on board with 30-knot winds and the boat bouncing around all over the place, it's fantastic to be able to come ashore and have a walk around this island. And it's a really clear day today, and out in the distance, I don't know if it'll come out on camera, but you can see the volcanic peaks of mainland Sumatra. We haven't seen mainland Sumatra since we came round Banda Aceh on the north. We've been out on the outer islands, but it must be a really clear day today. It's an awesome view.
Around the other side of the island, we could spot several other lagoons and islands that would make stunning anchorages in this calm weather. Most of the islands here are covered in dense jungle, so if you want to stretch your legs, a circumnavigation by the beach is the best option.
What you found?
I found another nautilus shell. You see,
Oh, that's cool.
a broken one on the beach. He's full of sand and he's a bit sun bleached.
Yeah, it's got a bit of a... Is that a crack or is that just how he's grown?
I think that's just the way it's formed. It's just heavy because it's full of sand.
Cool.
Cute, that one. It's cool. I'll clean him up and put some oil in him, and then that'll bring the colour back like this.
Nice. Now we need a bigger boat to display all the shells. Amy's shell collection.
This one's light.
It's a pretty magical location, this. We're so lucky to actually be able to come to an island like this. Just so quiet. There's a beautiful beach all the way around the island. If you go just in from the beach, in a few places, you can see what they're doing mainly on this island, and it seems to be run as a bit of a copra plantation. I first came across this back in the Marquesas, when they're chopping all the coconuts up and drying them out and drying the meat of the coconut as copra, and selling it for, gets used in cosmetics and loads of different stuff. But all the way around here, just back from the beach, there are loads of places where there's piles of empty coconut husks and racks for drying it. So these are the ones that have been cut open and the meat harvested from, and these ones are clearly yet to be cut open and dried. And that's actually a really nice view of Florence just through the bushes. It's a pretty magical location, this. Well, unfortunately our plans have had to change. The weather had just gone calm, perfect for exploring all those reefs and little islands, but we got a message over the radio, because we're not actually far away from where some of the rest of the fleet are, still in the Tello town, just at the extreme range of VHF reception, saying that we actually need to come back because we suddenly need to give all our passports in to the local agent so they can get extended. We were planning, we thought that was all going to happen next week, so we had another week to explore before we needed to come back, but it all suddenly needs to happen. So this morning we had to up anchor early, and since there's no wind, we're having to motor all the way back round to Tello. It's about 25 miles, and we can get there just before the ferry goes, so that we can put all our passports on the ferry for them to go up to the main town, or the main island in the area, and hopefully we can get them extended for another 2 months.
It turns out that the reason for the rush was a rumour of the visa office being shut the following week due to COVID.
Hopefully once we get our passports back with hopefully extended visas again, we can go and explore there another time. So yeah, so we're motoring back into town now. For now, those islands will have to remain unexplored. Next time we do head out and explore those islands further, and we get a surprise along the way.
We'd like to thank everybody who supports the making of these videos, especially our star patrons.
Your support makes a huge difference to our ability to share these videos. If you'd like to join the crew and support us on Patreon, please follow the link above.
We post a new video every other week, so if you want to catch the next one, make sure you subscribe and click the notification bell.
And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps the video to get noticed by the YouTube algorithm and get shown to more people.